can make our process go a lot easier than in other cases where it might not be able to. All of them, I mean, it's detailed information if you've ever been through the process, but it can definitely get done, and it can definitely mitigate, like I talked about, the collateral shortfall. If there's any, it can mitigate that item. It allows us to use projections in an analysis by using the SBA guarantee. The 504s are only used for equipment or hard assets or fixed assets. So in this case, only if you were financing equipment, in your case, that we would be looking at 504. But a 7A and Express is for loans that are 350 and less, term loans or lines. 7A, you don't, only for term notes. It's not used for lines of credit. So right now, as of today, there is, the stimulus package was approved, and so the SBA fees have been waived. Now, the deadline is supposed to be May 31st, but this time last month, the deadline was April 30th. So they keep pushing it back, but, so I could go into tomorrow, and it could be now June 30th. So, and that's where your fees of 2% or 3% are waived. And that's usually been one of the things that have really deterred some borrowers from going SBA because they didn't want to pay the fees. So that's been a nice change. But at the same time, sometimes, depending on the cash flow, things of that nature, we can still finance those fees as well. So there's options in that. And like I said, Express is quicker than that 7A. 7A can get a little bit more invasive, but Express is a lot quicker. But it just depends on how much. And like I said, if it's less than 350, I usually gear it toward the Express because it's just easier and quicker for everyone to work with. But other than that, again, I'm Wendy Washington with Chase. I'll be here through the speed dating period. And if you have any questions for me, you can stop by and definitely give me a chance to speak and talk with you about what we can do. In my role, since I've been an underwriter, I've done a lot more. I've done consulting as well as just, packaging a deal and sending it off to our business loan center, which is here in Dallas, as a matter of fact. So that works real well. And that's where I did my underwriting. But kind of helps if you can't get somewhere to know why you can't get there and then what you need to do to get there. So thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity, and have a good day.
I'm just going to leave that there. Okay. All right. Mr. Swift, I see my good friend Daryl in the back, all the usual suspects. We appreciate all of you guys coming down and visiting with us about this particular effort. My name is Don O'Bannon, and I'm the Vice President of Business Diversity and Development. And really what I would like to talk about is I've done some high-level presentations on, the new regulations and the joint venture guidance. I really want to, at this point, just get into the weeds for a minute and talk about some of the specific areas that you need to consider if you are considering a joint venture. If you are an ACDB owner, some of these issues are also applicable to you in terms of source of funding, those types of issues. But I'm going to talk about joint ventures for a moment. First of all, you have to understand, and I think for those of you who have been in this business for quite a while, things have changed. And they have changed basically in a revolutionary way in terms of how joint ventures have operated in the past and what the requirements are that they operate now and into the future. And I will tell you, from having just gone through a audit by the FAA of our compliance and the implementation of our joint venture guidance, our regulators are serious about enforcing and implementing and requiring us as airports to follow and implement the guidance. In reviewing the joint ventures, the requirements are simply, I don't know how to put it other than I can have a full-time staff of people doing what the regs are requiring us to do. So, in talking about your joint venture relationship, in terms of having a conversation with a Hudson or a Host or a Texas Pretzel, these are the things that you really need to work out, because the documents have to be specific, they have to be detailed, and they have to clearly respond to what the joint venture guidance is suggesting or requiring us to look at. Capital contribution. Let's talk about that for one moment. You have to specify the initial capital contribution, and you have to specify how future capital contributions are going to be made from the ACDBE to the joint venture. So it's just not, you can't give us anymore, my capital contribution is $1 and other valuable consideration, or it's no discussion of what that contribution is. We need to know specifically what the capital contribution is that the ACDBE partner is going to make to the venture. And then our responsibilities as an airport are to verify that that capital is in place, that it is available to be invested in the joint venture. Now, we've just sat through a wonderful presentation by Chase talking about access to capital, and I'd like to touch on one aspect of this capital issue. In the past, some of our prime joint venture partners have loaned 100% of the capital to a potential joint venture partner, or they finance them. And part of that is just realistically the cost of capital. Finding capital for this type of activity, frankly, is difficult, because unlike a landside store where you have a 15 or 20-year or 10-year mortgage and you have something that can be attached, here you simply have a lease for 5 years or 7 years or whatever your term is, with really no commitment from the airport that even if you do the best job in the world, that there's going to be additional term added. So it is a different type of animal, and the airports and the FAA recognize that there are going to be those instances in which the prime may be in a position or will offer, in order to facilitate that joint venture, provide financing to the joint venture partner. Now, what does that financing have to look like? Let me explain a couple of key points. And we will look for and ask you to produce your loan agreements or your promissory notes that show that these particular requirements are met if you seek to obtain financing from your prime contractor. It must be a recourse note. You cannot sign or cannot produce a non-recourse note. That's first. You have to be at risk. Second, it must be at prevailing market rates, offered by commercial lenders for similar projects. Now, I've already talked to finance because, I can barely balance my checkbook, yet alone having to deal with these financial issues. So we're going to have some expert eyes take a look at this to make sure that we're on track. The agreement has to be in writing. It can't be an oral promise that you're going to lend somebody X amount of dollars. I need the terms,